The team captain stopped practice and confronted us. Whoever's been sabotaging equipment needs to confess before someone dies. The entire swim team went silent. Coach Holloway stood behind our captain, Jaden Mills, with his arms crossed and his face redder than I'd ever seen it. We were all standing on the pool deck dripping wet, mid-practice, when Jaden climbed out and made everyone stop. I looked around at my teammates trying to figure out who looked guilty. 16 guys in matching Oak Ridge High swim team suits, all staring at Jaden like he'd lost his mind. But Jaden's expression was dead serious. He held up a piece of equipment, one of the starting blocks from lane 4. The metal platform looked normal from where I stood, but Jaden pointed to the base. Someone loosened every bolt on this block. If Lucas had dove off this during our meet yesterday, it would have collapsed. He would have hit the concrete deck head first from 6 feet up. My stomach dropped. Lucas Fung was our best diver, senior, headed to nationals. A fall like that could have killed him or left him paralyzed. Jaden continued, his voice shaking with barely controlled anger. This isn't the first incident. Someone's been messing with our equipment for 3 weeks now. Cut kickboard straps, chlorine levels tampered with, pool drain covers loosened. Someone on this team is trying to hurt people, and I want to know who right now. Nobody moved. The only sound was water dripping from our bodies onto the wet tiles and the hum of the pool filtration system. I watched each teammate's face, looking for any sign of guilt or recognition. My best friend Caleb stood 2 people down from me, his jaw clenched tight. He caught me looking and gave me a confused shrug. Coach Holloway stepped forward, his voice cold and authoritative. Jaden came to me this morning with evidence of systematic sabotage. We checked every piece of equipment in this facility. What we found is disturbing and dangerous. Whoever's doing this isn't playing pranks. They're attempting to cause serious injury or death. He pulled out his phone and held it up so we could all see. The screen showed photos of equipment damage, starting block bolts with stripped threads, pool chemicals with tampered seals, lane ropes with cut anchors. I've contacted the athletic director and the principal. The police will be involved if we don't get answers today. So I'm giving you one chance. Come forward now and face school discipline, or stay silent and face criminal charges when we find you through investigation. The accusation hung in the air like chlorine gas. I felt sick. Someone on our team, someone I practiced with every day, was deliberately trying to hurt us. I thought about Lucas diving off that block yesterday, how he'd stood on it for almost 30 seconds, adjusting his goggles before the starting signal. 30 seconds where the entire platform could have given way beneath him. Jaden spoke again. I'm not leaving this pool until someone talks. We're not swimming another lap until this is resolved. If you know something, if you saw something, if you even suspect someone, you need to speak up right now. Still silence. But I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Trevor Moss, sophomore, was shifting his weight from foot to foot, his eyes darting around nervously. He looked terrified, but that didn't necessarily mean guilt. Everyone was terrified right now. Coach Holloway's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then his expression darkened even more. Understood. We'll be right there. He hung up and addressed us. That was Principal Vance. Everyone needs to move to the locker room immediately. Athletic Director Monroe is on her way with security. This pool is now considered a crime scene. Crime scene. The words made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't just team drama or school politics. Someone had committed actual crimes, with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. We filed into the locker room in silence, our wet feet squeaking on the tile floor. The locker room felt smaller with all 16 of us crammed inside, the smell of chlorine and teenage boy sweat overwhelming. Jaden blocked the door, making it clear nobody was leaving. Coach Holloway stood in the center of the room. Get dressed. Stay in here. Don't talk to each other about this. Athletic Director Monroe will interview each of you individually. He left, closing the door behind him. The second he was gone, the room erupted in whispers. Who the hell would do this? That was Marcus Reed, Jr., one of our freestylers. This is insane. Nobody on this team would actually try to kill someone. Caleb moved closer to me while we toweled off. He lowered his voice. Dude, did you see Trevor's face? He looked like he was about to pass out. I had seen it. Trevor was sitting on the bench now, his head in his hands, breathing hard. He looked like he might throw up. I walked over to Trevor carefully, aware that everyone was watching. Hey, you okay? Trevor looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. His voice came out shaky and too loud. I didn't do anything. I swear I didn't sabotage anything. The fact that he felt the need to say that, unprompted, made everyone turn and stare. Jaden pushed off from the door and walked toward us. Nobody accused you specifically, Trevor. Why are you so defensive? Trevor stood up fast, his back against his locker. Because everyone's looking at me like I'm guilty. I'm not. I wouldn't hurt anyone. His panic was either genuine fear of false accusation or guilt manifesting as defensive behavior. I couldn't tell which. Jaden studied him for a long moment. If you didn't do it, then you have nothing to worry about. Just tell the truth when they interview you. Trevor nodded jerkily, but didn't look convinced. The door opened, and Athletic Director Monroe walked in with 2 security guards. Monroe was a tall black woman in her 50s with the kind of presence that made everyone shut up immediately. She scanned the room with sharp eyes. Listen carefully. You will be interviewed one at a time in Coach Holloway's office. You will answer all questions truthfully. Lying or withholding information will result in immediate suspension and potential criminal charges. We have security footage from the pool area going back 4 weeks. We will find who did this. Security footage. My brain started racing. The pool had cameras covering the deck and entrance, but I didn't think there were cameras inside the equipment room or locker areas. Whoever sabotaged the equipment had probably done it somewhere the cameras couldn't see. Monroe pointed at Jaden. "Captain, you're first. Come with me." Jaden followed her out. The rest of us sat in tense silence, avoiding eye contact. I tried to think through everything I'd seen over the past 3 weeks. The cut kickboard straps had happened 2 weeks ago. Several guys had complained their boards were falling apart mid-practice. Coach Holloway had assumed they were just old equipment finally giving out. The chlorine incident was more recent, maybe 5 days ago. The pool water had burned our eyes so badly we had to stop practice early. The pool maintenance guy said someone had dumped extra chlorine tablets into the chemical feeder, creating dangerous concentration levels. And now, the starting blocks. Each incident had escalated in potential danger. This wasn't random vandalism. Someone was deliberately increasing the stakes, seeing what they could get away with, working up to something that would cause real injury. Caleb leaned over and whispered so quietly only I could hear. What if it's not someone on the team? What if it's someone with access to the pool from outside? I'd considered that too, but it didn't make sense. Who would have motive to hurt random high school swimmers? And how would they get past security and know our practice schedule well enough to time everything perfectly? Caleb didn't have an answer. We sat in silence for another 10 minutes before Jaden came back. His face was unreadable. Monroe appeared in the doorway. "Lucas Fung, you're next." Lucas stood and walked out, his usual confidence replaced with visible nervousness. The interviews continued for 2 hours. One by one, guys were called out and came back looking shaken or angry or scared. When it was finally my turn, I walked into Coach Holloway's office to find Monroe sitting behind the desk with a security guard standing by the door. Coach Holloway sat in the corner taking notes. Monroe gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit down, Nathan. Let's talk about what you know." My full name is Nathan Cross. I'm a junior. I swim butterfly and individual medley, and I've been on this team for 3 years. I'm not the fastest swimmer, but I'm consistent, and I show up. Monroe had a notepad in front of her with what looked like a list of names and check marks. "Nathan, I'm going to ask you direct questions. I expect direct answers. Do you understand?" I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Have you witnessed anyone tampering with team equipment?" "No." "Have you witnessed anyone behaving suspiciously around the pool, locker room, or equipment storage?" I thought about Trevor's panic, but suspicious behavior after an accusation wasn't the same as suspicious behavior before. "No." "Do you have any reason to believe someone on the team would want to cause harm to their teammates?" That was a harder question. "Not that I know of, but I guess I don't really know what's going on in everyone's head." Monroe studied me. "What about conflicts? Rivalries? Someone angry about losing a spot or not getting recognition?" I considered that. Swim teams had natural competition for relay positions and individual event spots, but nothing that seemed serious enough to justify attempted murder. There's normal competition stuff. People want to swim faster times and make varsity spots, but nothing that seems extreme. Monroe made a note. "What about Trevor Moss? You approached him in the locker room." "Why?" I chose my words carefully. He looked upset. I wanted to check if he was okay. He immediately said he didn't do anything, which seemed like a strange reaction. Did Trevor seem upset because he felt guilty or because he was scared of being falsely accused? That was the question, wasn't it? I don't know. Could be either. Monroe asked me several more questions about my observations over the past few weeks, whether I'd noticed anyone arriving early or staying late, whether I'd seen anyone enter restricted areas. I answered honestly that I hadn't noticed anything unusual. She dismissed me after 20 minutes and called the next person. I went back to the locker room where about half the team was still waiting. Trevor wasn't there anymore. Caleb caught my eye and mouthed, "What happened?" I shook my head slightly, indicating we shouldn't talk about it. The interviews finished around 6 in the evening, 3 hours after practice should have ended. Monroe gathered us all in the locker room one final time. "We've completed initial interviews with all team members. Based on those interviews and security footage review, we have identified several persons of interest. Those individuals will be suspended from team activities pending further investigation. For the rest of you, practice is canceled until we complete our investigation and ensure all equipment is safe. You'll be notified when we resume. Go home. If you think of anything relevant, contact me or Coach Holloway immediately." She left without telling us who the persons of interest were, but the absence of 3 guys made it obvious. Trevor Moss, Kyle Jennings, and Austin Park. All sophomores, all relatively new to the team this year. I grabbed my bag and headed out with Caleb. We walked to the parking lot in silence until we were away from everyone else. Then Caleb exploded. "Trevor, Kyle, and Austin? That makes no sense. Those guys are harmless. Trevor's scared of his own shadow. Kyle's the nicest guy on the team. Austin barely talks to anyone." I'd been thinking the same thing. Maybe that's why they're suspicious. Quiet guys who keep to themselves, easy to miss if they're doing something shady. Caleb shook his head. Or they're just quiet guys who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time on security footage. This whole thing feels wrong. We reached my car and I threw my bag in the trunk. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom asking why I was so late. I texted back explaining there'd been a team emergency. Caleb leaned against his car next to mine. You know what bothers me most? The escalation. Cut straps, chemical tampering, loosened bolts. Whoever's doing this is testing boundaries, seeing how far they can go before someone gets seriously hurt. What if they're not done? What if suspending 3 innocent guys just makes the real saboteur feel safer? That thought had been nagging at me too. Monroe said they had security footage. If they have actual evidence against Trevor and the others, then maybe they got the right people. And if they don't, they're just guessing based on proximity? Caleb's voice was intense. Then the real saboteur is still out there, and now they know the team is divided and paranoid. Perfect time to strike again. I didn't want to believe that, but I couldn't dismiss it either. We said goodbye, and I drove home, my mind churning through everything that had happened. When I walked in my front door, my mom was in the kitchen making dinner. She took one look at my face and asked what was wrong. I told her everything. The sabotage, the confrontation, the interviews, the suspensions. She listened with growing concern, her wooden spoon frozen mid-stir. Nathan, this is serious. Someone deliberately tried to cause injury. You need to be extremely careful. I know. That's why they suspended practice. My mom set down the spoon and turned to face me fully. No. I mean, you personally need to be careful. If the person doing this feels threatened or cornered, they might escalate further. They might target people they think are getting too close to figuring them out. Promise me you'll stay out of it and let the authorities handle this. I promised, but even as I said the words, I knew I couldn't just ignore what was happening. These were my teammates, my friends. If someone was trying to hurt them, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the timeline of incidents and trying to figure out patterns. The kickboard straps were cut 2 weeks ago on a Friday. The chlorine was tampered with 5 days ago on a Sunday morning before practice. The starting blocks were loosened sometime between Thursday night's practice and Friday morning's meet. Whoever was doing this had access to the pool facility at various times, including potentially after hours. That suggested either someone with a key or someone who knew how to get in without one. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the team group chat, reading back through 3 weeks of messages. Most of it was typical stuff. Practice times, meet results, jokes and memes. But I noticed something odd. Every time there was an incident, Trevor had been one of the first people to comment in the group chat. After the kickboard incident, did anyone else's board break? Mine literally fell apart. After the chlorine incident, my eyes are still burning. That was insane. After the starting block discovery, thank God Lucas didn't dive on that block. He could have died. Maybe it was coincidence. Or maybe Trevor was trying to insert himself into the conversation, play the concerned teammate while secretly causing the problems. But that theory fell apart when I remembered Trevor's genuine panic in the locker room. He hadn't looked guilty. He'd looked terrified. Unless he was an incredible actor, his fear seemed real. I kept scrolling and found another pattern. Kyle Jennings had missed practice the day before each incident. Before the kickboard sabotage, he'd texted that he had a dentist appointment. Before the chlorine incident, he'd said he was sick. Before the starting blocks were loosened, he'd claimed family emergency. 3 absences, 3 incidents. That was suspicious. But it could also be terrible timing and coincidence. Kyle had doctor's notes for his absences. I'd seen Coach Holloway checking them. The third person of interest was Austin Park. I didn't know Austin well. He was quiet, kept to himself, showed up to practice and did his work without socializing much. I scrolled through looking for anything from Austin in the group chat. He rarely posted, maybe once every week or 2. His messages were always brief and practical. Running late. Can someone bring extra goggles? What's the meet schedule? Nothing suspicious, but also nothing that gave any insight into his personality or motives. I was still scrolling when my phone buzzed with a new message in the group chat. It was from Jaden, sent to everyone at 11 at night. Emergency team meeting tomorrow at school, 4 p.m. in the library. Everyone needs to be there. This is mandatory. A second message followed immediately. Trevor, Kyle, and Austin are suspended from this meeting and from team activities. Do not contact them about team business. I stared at those messages for a long time. Something about them felt wrong. Why would Jaden call a team meeting without Coach Holloway or Monroe present? Why meet at the library instead of the pool? And why specifically ban the 3 suspended guys if they were really the saboteurs? I texted Caleb. That meeting message from Jaden seems weird. Caleb responded within seconds. Yeah, I was just about to text you. Why meet at school after hours? And why is Jaden organizing this instead of Coach? Should we go? I think we have to. If we don't show up, we'll look suspicious too. He was right. Not showing up would paint a target on our backs, but showing up could be walking into something dangerous. I finally fell asleep around 1 in the morning, my dreams filled with collapsing starting blocks and drowning in overchlorinated water. The next day at school, the sabotage story had spread through the entire student body. People I didn't know stopped me in the hallway asking if it was true that someone tried to kill the swim team. Rumors were flying. Someone said the saboteur had left death threats in lockers. Someone else claimed the pool was permanently closed. Another person insisted 3 guys had already been arrested. I saw Trevor between second and third period. He was at his locker, moving quickly, shoving books into his bag. His face was pale and he looked like he hadn't slept. I hesitated, then walked over. Hey, you okay? Trevor jumped like I'd screamed at him. He turned, saw it was me, and his shoulders dropped slightly. No, I'm not okay. Everyone thinks I'm a psycho who tried to murder my teammates. Someone spray-painted killer on my car this morning. My parents are talking about transferring me to another school. Anger flashed through me. Whoever sabotaged the equipment was now destroying innocent lives too. Did you tell Monroe about your car? Yeah. She filed a report. Says it's vandalism and harassment and she'll find who did it. But that doesn't help me right now. Everyone's already decided I'm guilty. I wanted to say something comforting, but I didn't know what. For what it's worth, I don't think you did it. Your reaction yesterday seemed genuine. Trevor's eyes got watery. Thank you. That actually means a lot. He closed his locker and started to walk away, then turned back. Nathan, be careful. Whoever's really doing this is still out there. And now they've got perfect cover, because everyone's focused on me, Kyle, and Austin. They can do whatever they want and nobody will suspect them. He left before I could respond. His words echoed in my head all day. The 4 o'clock meeting was approaching, and I felt increasingly uneasy about it. When the final bell rang, I met Caleb outside the library. Most of the team was already there, standing around in small groups. Jaden stood near the entrance, checking people in like he was running a covert operation. Nathan, Caleb, good. Everyone's almost here. He had a strange energy, wired and intense. I'd known Jaden for 2 years and never seen him like this. Why are we meeting here instead of with Coach Holloway? Jaden glanced around before answering. Because Coach and Monroe are focused on their investigation, but I think they're looking in the wrong direction. I think the 3 guys they suspended are innocent, and I think I know who actually did it. My heart started racing. Who? Not out here. Inside when everyone's together. He gestured us into the library. We filed in and gathered in the back section where the study tables were. 13 guys from the team, minus the 3 suspended. Jaden stood at the head of the table, pulled out his laptop, and connected it to a projector that was set up. I've been doing my own investigation, looking at things Monroe missed, and I found something. He pulled up security footage on the projector. The timestamp showed 3 weeks ago, late evening after practice hours. The camera angle showed the pool entrance. This is from the night before the kickboard straps were cut. Watch the door. We all stared at the grainy footage. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the door opened and a figure slipped inside. The person wore dark clothes and a hoodie, face obscured. They moved quickly, aware of camera placement, keeping their head down. Jaden paused the footage. That person went into the pool facility at 9:47 p.m. The building was supposed to be locked. They were inside for 18 minutes. He advanced the footage to show the same figure leaving at 10:05 p.m. Still hooded, still keeping their face hidden. Now watch this. Same camera angle 5 days ago, the night before the chlorine incident. He played more footage. Same hooded figure, same careful movement, entering at 10:13 p.m. and leaving at 10:31 p.m. And this is from 3 nights ago, before the starting blocks incident. Again, the hooded figure appeared, entering at 9:52 p.m. and leaving at 10:09 p.m. Jaden stopped the footage and turned to us. 3 appearances, 3 incidents. This is our saboteur. Monroe hasn't released this footage to anyone yet because she's still trying to identify the person, but I enhanced the images and found something she missed. He pulled up a zoomed-in frame showing the figure's hand reaching for the door. On the wrist was a distinctive bracelet, blue and white beaded pattern. Recognize this bracelet? The room went silent. Then Marcus spoke up. That's a team spirit bracelet, the ones we got at the start of season. Exactly, Jaden said, which means this person is on our team, or was at some point. Monroe focused on Trevor, Kyle, and Austin because they showed up on daytime footage near the equipment room at various times, but that's just coincidence. The real saboteur is someone who comes after hours when they think nobody's watching. He pulled up another enhanced image, this one showing a partial view of the person's shoes. Dark sneakers with a distinctive red stripe on the sole. These are Adidas Ultra Boost 22s with the custom red stripe. Only 3 people on our team have these shoes. He paused for effect. Me, Lucas, and Caleb. Every head turned to look at the 3 of them. My best friend Caleb went white. Lucas stood up so fast his chair fell over. Are you seriously accusing us? I'm the one who almost got killed by the starting block. Jaden held up his hands. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm presenting evidence. I don't own this bracelet anymore. I lost mine weeks ago. Lucas, do you still have yours? Lucas patted his wrist where he usually wore it. His face changed when he realized it wasn't there. I took it off for practice yesterday. It should be in my locker. And Caleb? Jaden turned to my best friend. Caleb's voice came out strangled. I have mine. It's in my bag. He moved to grab his swim bag from where he'd set it down, unzipped it, and started digging through. His movements became more frantic. It's not here. I swear it was in here this morning. I watched Caleb's panic with growing horror. This couldn't be happening. Not Caleb. I'd known him since middle school. We'd been best friends for 5 years. He wouldn't sabotage equipment. He wouldn't try to hurt people. But the evidence was stacking against him. The missing bracelet, the shoes, and something else I'd just remembered. Caleb had mentioned earlier that maybe it wasn't someone on the team, that it could be an outsider. Had he been trying to redirect suspicion away from himself? Jaden was watching Caleb carefully. The footage shows someone your height and build, and there's something else. He pulled up one more image, this one showing the figure from behind as they left the pool. On the back of their hoodie was a faint logo, barely visible in the dark. Jaden zoomed in on it. That's the logo for Camden Street Music Store. Caleb, doesn't your family own that store? Didn't you get a hoodie with that logo when they opened? Caleb looked like he might pass out. Yes, but I'm not the only person with that hoodie. They gave them out to everyone who came to the grand opening. At least 50 people have them. How many of those 50 people are on the swim team with access to the facility, with these specific shoes, and with a missing team bracelet? Jaden's voice was cold now, prosecutorial. The room felt like it was closing in. Everyone was staring at Caleb. My best friend looked at me desperately. Nathan, tell them, you know me. I would never do this. I wanted to defend him immediately and absolutely, but doubt was creeping in, poisoning everything. The evidence was damning. The bracelet, the shoes, the hoodie, the careful deflection yesterday about outsiders. What if I didn't know Caleb as well as I thought? What if there was a side of him I'd never seen? Jaden spoke before I could. Caleb, I'm giving you the chance Trevor didn't get. Confess now. Tell us why you did it. Was it because you were angry about not making varsity times? Because you felt overlooked? Just tell the truth and we can work through this. Caleb's face crumpled, not with guilt, but with betrayal and disbelief. I didn't do anything. I'm being framed. Someone took my bracelet, someone who knows I have those shoes and that hoodie, someone who wants everyone to think it's me. Who would want to frame you? Jaden asked. Who even has access to your stuff? Anyone in the locker room. We leave our bags there during practice. Someone could have taken my bracelet any time. That was true. The locker room wasn't secure. We left our belongings there regularly, but it still sounded like a desperate excuse. Marcus spoke up. Jaden, shouldn't we take this to Monroe instead of confronting Caleb ourselves? Monroe's investigation is moving too slowly. By the time she figures this out, someone could actually get hurt. I wanted to handle this internally first, give Caleb a chance to admit what he did. Jaden's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his expression changed. We need to get to the pool. Now. Why? Practice is canceled. Lucas was still standing, still looking shaken. Jaden turned his phone around to show us a text message from an unknown number. Because I just got this. The message read, if you want to know the truth about the sabotage, come to the pool equipment room at 4:45 p.m. Come alone, or I disappear. The timestamp showed the message was sent 3 minutes ago. It was currently 4:42 p.m. Jaden started moving toward the door. This is our chance to catch whoever's doing this. If it's really not Caleb, then the real saboteur just revealed themselves. You're not seriously going alone, I said. What if it's a trap? That's why I'm not going alone. I want everyone to come but stay hidden. I'll go into the equipment room. You guys stay out of sight. If things go bad, you're witnesses and backup. It was a terrible plan with a dozen ways to go wrong, but nobody had a better idea. We left the library and headed toward the pool facility as a group. The school was mostly empty at this hour, just a few after-school clubs and sports teams. We reached the pool building and Jaden used his team captain key card to open the locked door. The smell of chlorine hit us immediately. The pool area was dark, except for emergency lighting. Our footsteps echoed on the tile deck. Jaden gestured for us to spread out and stay quiet. He pulled out his phone and turned on the recording function. I'm documenting everything. Stay hidden and don't interfere unless I'm in actual danger. He walked toward the equipment room at the far end of the pool deck. The rest of us fanned out, ducking behind the bleachers and starting blocks, trying to stay concealed while keeping line of sight on Jaden. My heart was pounding. This felt wrong. Every instinct screamed that we should have gone to Monroe or Coach Holloway instead of staging this confrontation ourselves, but it was too late now. Jaden reached the equipment room door and opened it slowly. The room was dark inside. He fumbled for the light switch and flipped it on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a figure stepped out from behind the storage shelves. I couldn't see clearly from my hiding spot behind the bleachers, but I heard Jaden's sharp intake of breath. I should have known. The figure moved into better light and I finally saw who it was. Coach Holloway. He stood in the equipment room with his arms crossed, his expression grim. Jaden, what are you doing here? I got an anonymous tip that someone would be breaking into the pool after hours. Jaden's voice was confused. I got a text telling me to come here. I thought it was from the saboteur. Show me the text. Jaden held out his phone. Coach Holloway looked at it, frowned, and pulled out his own phone. I got a similar message 30 minutes ago. Someone's playing us both. A noise behind me made me turn. Caleb had moved from his hiding spot and was creeping closer to the equipment room, trying to hear better. I waved at him to stay back, but he ignored me. Then I heard another sound from the opposite side of the pool. Someone else was here. Before I could react, the lights went out. The entire pool facility plunged into darkness. Emergency exit signs provided the only illumination, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Jaden's voice called out from the equipment room. What's happening? Who turned off the lights? Coach Holloway's voice answered, tight with alarm. The main breaker must have been thrown. Everyone stay calm and stay where you are. But people weren't staying calm. I heard splashing and realized with horror that someone had fallen into the pool in the darkness. Shouting erupted from multiple directions. Help! Someone fell in! Who is that? Turn on the lights! I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight, as did several others. Beams of light crisscrossed the pool deck, creating chaotic shadows. In the pool, someone was thrashing in lane 6. I ran to the edge and shined my light down. It was Lucas. He'd gone into the water fully clothed and was swimming toward the ladder. "I'm okay! I just lost my footing in the dark!" Lucas grabbed the ladder and started climbing out. But as he pulled himself up, there was a horrible cracking sound. The ladder's mounting bolts gave way, and the entire structure pulled away from the pool wall. Lucas fell backward into the water with the heavy metal ladder on top of him. He went under. I dove in without thinking. The water was cold and the chlorine burned my eyes, but I could see Lucas below me, trapped under the ladder, struggling. I reached him and tried to lift the ladder off, but it was heavier than expected, and the weight kept pushing him deeper. Another splash beside me. Caleb had jumped in too. Together we managed to lift the ladder enough for Lucas to slip out from under it. We dragged him to the surface. He came up coughing and gasping, his face panicked. Marcus and another teammate pulled Lucas out of the pool while Caleb and I climbed out after him. Lucas was shaking, coughing up water. The ladder. Someone loosened the bolts, just like the starting blocks. Coach Holloway's voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone out of the pool area now. This facility is not safe. Everyone to the hallway immediately." We scrambled toward the exit, using phone flashlights to navigate. Once we were all in the hallway, Coach Holloway did a head count. Everyone was accounted for. "Nobody goes back in there until we've inspected every piece of equipment and gotten the police here. Jaden, call 911. Nathan, find the main breaker and get the lights back on." I ran toward the electrical room with Caleb following me. We found the breaker panel, and sure enough, the main breaker had been thrown to the off position. I flipped it back, and the lights throughout the facility came back on. When we returned to the hallway, Monroe was there. She must have been in the building for some after-hours work. Her expression was furious. "What is everyone doing here? Practice is canceled, and this facility is under investigation." Jaden explained about the text message that had lured him here. Monroe's face darkened. "You should have brought that message to me immediately, not staged some vigilante investigation. You put everyone in danger." "The saboteur put us in danger," Jaden shot back. "They lured us here specifically to sabotage the pool ladder when they knew someone would use it in the dark. They threw the breaker deliberately." Monroe turned to Coach Holloway. "Did you see anyone else in the facility?" "No. The equipment room was empty when I arrived. Whoever sent those texts and threw the breaker was already gone before we got here." "Or they're still here," I said, pretending to be one of us. Everyone went silent. The implication hung in the air like a blade. Monroe's voice was steel. "Everyone hand over your phones. Now." We complied, placing our phones in a pile. Monroe started going through them one by one, checking recent messages. When she got to Caleb's phone, she stopped. Her expression changed. "Caleb, you have a message here sent 10 minutes ago to an unknown number. Stage is set. They'll never suspect me. Want to explain that?" Caleb's face went white. "I didn't send that. I don't know what that is. Someone must have accessed my phone." "Your phone has a fingerprint lock. How would someone access it?" "I don't know. Maybe they lifted my print. Maybe they hacked it somehow. I didn't send that message." Monroe wasn't convinced. She kept scrolling through Caleb's phone and found something else. "You also have photos here. Photos of the equipment room taken 2 nights ago. Photos showing exactly where the ladder bolts were located." I felt sick. The evidence against Caleb was overwhelming. The bracelet, the shoes, the hoodie, and now messages and photos on his own phone. But I'd been with Caleb almost constantly. When would he have had time to sabotage equipment? When would he have taken those photos? Caleb was shaking his head violently. "This isn't real. Someone planted this on my phone. They're framing me." "Who would frame you?" Monroe demanded. "Why you specifically?" "Because he's close to figuring it out." The voice came from behind us. We all turned to see Trevor, Kyle, and Austin standing at the end of the hallway. They weren't supposed to be here. They were suspended from team activities. Trevor stepped forward. "We were suspended, so we started investigating on our own. And we found something Monroe missed." He held up his own phone, showing security footage. "This is from the school's network server. Not the pool cameras, but the cameras in the school hallways. Watch who accesses the athletic office 2 hours before each incident." He played the footage. It showed someone using a key card to enter the athletic office where keys to the pool facility were kept. The person's face was clearly visible. It was Jaden, our team captain, the person who'd gathered us all here tonight, the person who'd claimed he was investigating the sabotage. Jaden's face drained of color. Trevor continued. "Jaden has master access to team facilities as captain. He could get in and out any time. He created that footage of the hooded figure, doctored it to include elements that would point toward Caleb. He took Caleb's bracelet from his bag during practice. He planted evidence on Caleb's phone. He's been setting this up for weeks." Monroe moved toward Jaden, her hand on her radio. "Jaden Mills, stay exactly where you are." But Jaden was already moving. He bolted toward the pool deck entrance. Coach Holloway tried to grab him, but Jaden was faster. He made it through the door, and we heard his footsteps running across the pool deck. Monroe spoke urgently into her radio, calling for security and police backup. Then she followed Jaden into the pool facility. Against her direct orders, I followed too. I had to know why. Why would our captain, our leader, try to hurt his own teammates? I reached the pool deck to see Jaden cornered at the far end near the diving well. Monroe had him blocked from the main exit. He looked wild, desperate. "Jaden, it's over," Monroe said firmly. "Tell me why you did this." Jaden's voice cracked. Because nobody ever takes swim seriously. Football gets new equipment every year. Basketball gets facility upgrades. We've been using the same broken kickboards and lane ropes for 5 years. I tried to get funding through proper channels. I wrote proposals. I presented to the school board. Nobody cared, so I made them care. By trying to injure your teammates? Monroe's voice was incredulous. I wasn't trying to injure anyone. I made sure every incident happened when nobody would actually get hurt. The kickboards were already old. Cutting the straps just made it obvious. The chlorine was monitored. I knew someone would test it before anyone got seriously burned. The starting blocks looked dangerous, but I made sure Lucas didn't use that specific block during the meet by telling him the other lanes had better lighting. He was rationalizing, justifying attempted harm as some kind of twisted activism. And tonight? I asked, stepping forward. You loosened the pool ladder and turned off the lights. Lucas could have drowned. I calculated the risks. I knew multiple people would be here. I knew someone would save him. The point was to make the incident serious enough that the school would finally allocate budget for new equipment. The rationalization was insane. Jaden had been willing to put people in life-threatening danger to prove a point about funding. Monroe moved closer to Jaden. Planting evidence on Caleb's phone, framing innocent teammates? How do you justify that? I needed someone to take the fall before the investigation got too close to me. Caleb was convenient. He had the right clothes, the right shoes. I could make it believable. Jaden looked at me then, his eyes pleading. You understand, don't you, Nathan? Something had to change. The system wasn't working. I thought about my mom's warning to stay out of it and let authorities handle things. I thought about Trevor's spray-painted car and suspended reputation. I thought about Lucas nearly drowning and Caleb being framed. No, I said quietly. I don't understand. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. You hurt people who called you their leader. Whatever funding problems the swim team has, you just made them 100 times worse. Jaden's face twisted with anger and desperation. For a moment I thought he might run or fight, but then his shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him. He sank to the ground, his back against the wall, and put his head in his hands. I just wanted people to care about swimming. Monroe radioed that the situation was secure. Within minutes, police arrived and took Jaden into custody. He was arrested for multiple charges: criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, filing false police reports, tampering with evidence, and attempted assault. They walked him out in handcuffs while the entire team watched in stunned silence. Monroe gathered us in the hallway. I owe several people an apology. Trevor, Kyle, Austin. You were suspended based on circumstantial evidence, and I should have investigated more thoroughly before taking action. Caleb, you were targeted and framed, and I almost believed the false evidence planted against you. I'm sorry to all of you. Trevor nodded stiffly, but didn't say he accepted the apology. He'd been through too much for words to fix it easily. Caleb just looked exhausted. Coach Holloway spoke next, his voice heavy with emotion. Jaden was right about one thing. Our program has been underfunded and overlooked, but his methods were inexcusable and dangerous. Moving forward, I'm going to fight like hell to get this team the resources it needs, the right way, through persistence and advocacy and documentation, not through sabotage and lies. Monroe added, all charges against Trevor, Kyle, and Austin are dropped completely. Your records will be cleared. The school will provide support for any counseling you need. We'll also be implementing better security measures and equipment inspection protocols. She dismissed us, and slowly everyone filed out. I found Caleb in the parking lot, sitting on his car hood staring at nothing. I sat next to him. I'm sorry I doubted you. Even for a second. Caleb didn't look at me. You were my best friend and you thought I could do something like that. How am I supposed to trust you again? The words hit like a punch. You're right. I should have defended you immediately. I should have known better. I let evidence cloud what I knew about who you are. That's on me. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Caleb spoke. Jaden fooled all of us. He was so convincing. The concerned captain, the dedicated investigator. How did we miss it? Because we trusted him. That's what leaders do. They earn trust, and then some of them abuse it. Caleb nodded slowly. Trevor tried to warn us. He said the real saboteur had perfect cover. He was right. The next few weeks were surreal. The story made local news, and swim programs across the state reached out offering support and funding. Ironically, Jaden's crimes accomplished what his advocacy hadn't. People were paying attention to swim team needs now. The school board allocated emergency funds for equipment replacement and facility upgrades, but it came at a terrible cost. Jaden was prosecuted as an adult due to the severity and premeditation of his actions. He pleaded guilty and received 2 years in juvenile detention, followed by probation. His swimming career was over, his college prospects destroyed, his legacy forever marked by the harm he'd caused. Trevor transferred schools anyway, despite being cleared. The damage to his reputation and the trauma of being falsely accused was too much to overcome. Kyle and Austin stayed, but were quieter than before, more guarded. Caleb and I slowly rebuilt our friendship, but it was different now. There was a crack in the foundation that might never fully heal. Lucas recovered physically but had nightmares about drowning. The incident had shaken him more deeply than he admitted. The team limped through the rest of the season with a new captain and new equipment. We didn't win championships, but we survived, and maybe that was enough. 3 months after Jaden's arrest, I visited him at the juvenile facility. I wasn't sure why I needed to go, but something drove me there. We sat across from each other in a stark visitation room, separated by a table and the weight of everything that had happened. "Why are you here?" Jaden asked. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by incarceration and consequence. "I need to understand. You had everything. You were captain. You were respected. You were going to swim in college. Why throw it all away?" Jaden was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Because I convinced myself the ends justified the means. I thought if I could force the school to care about swimming, it would be worth the risk. I thought I was the only one brave enough to do what needed to be done. I didn't see that I'd become exactly what I claimed to be fighting against. Someone who hurt people while claiming it was for their own." "Good." He looked up at me, his eyes red. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I am sorry. To you, to Caleb, to Lucas, to everyone. I destroyed people's trust and safety for my ego disguised as advocacy. That's the truth I have to live with." I stood to leave. "I hope you figure out how to live with it, because the rest of us have to." 4 years later, I was swimming at a college meet when I saw a familiar face in the stands. Trevor Moss was there watching, no longer running from swimming but choosing to stay connected to it. We caught up after the meet, and he told me he'd started a non-profit focused on supporting underfunded high school athletic programs. He was turning his experience into something constructive, making sure other teams got resources without anyone having to resort to sabotage or manipulation. "Jaden was wrong about his methods," Trevor said, "but he was right that the system fails a lot of programs. I'm trying to fix that the right way." He'd taken the worst moment of his life and transformed it into purpose, refusing to let someone else's actions define him forever. That night I called Caleb, who was swimming at a different college across the state. We talked about everything and nothing. Our friendship still imperfect, but real, because that's what survives sabotage and betrayal. The relationships built on actual truth, rather than manipulation and control. Jaden had tried to force change through destruction, and he'd destroyed himself in the process. But the people he'd hurt had chosen something different. They'd chosen to build rather than break, to heal rather than harm, to turn pain into progress, and in doing that, they'd won in ways Jaden never could. The team captain had stopped practice and demanded a confession, warning that someone would die. He'd been right about the danger, wrong about who posed it, because the real threat had been standing right in front of us the whole time, wearing the mask of leadership while planning our harm. And when that mask finally fell, we learned the hardest lesson, that the people you trust most can hurt you deepest. But choosing who to trust again is how you take your power back. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.